بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أحسن الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. So the first quality that is mentioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the opening of the Quran, the first quality of the believer is that the believer believes in the unseen. We find in Surah Al-Baqarah, Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابِ, and it continues, لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. So the first characteristic, the first quality mentioned about those who believe is that they believe in the unseen. And so from the affairs of the unseen that we have been told about by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the existence of the jinn. The existence of the jinn, another creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And likewise the existence of the angels, another creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah says in Surah Ar-Rahman, وَخَلَقَ الْجَانَّ مِن مَارِجٍ مِّن نَارٍ, that He created the jinn from the smokeless part of the fire. So we believe in the jinn. We believe that the jinn are obliged to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, and that the messengers that were sent, they were sent to the jinn and to the men. Now before we move any further with the topic of magic, it is important that we understand the relationship between the jinn and the men, because this has a great importance. It is very important, and it is connected to the issue of magic. So in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions the story of Adam and the creation of Adam alayhi salam, and how Iblis was a creation that already existed, and that when he created Adam and fashioned him and created him, he ordered Iblis to prostrate to Adam as an act of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as an act of obedience, as an act of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as you know the story, Iblis refused. He was arrogant, and he gave the reason. He said, خَلَقَتَهُ مِن طِينٍ وَخَلَقَتَنِي مِن نَارٍ, that you created him from clay, but you created me from fire. And so therefore he was arrogant. And as a result of that arrogance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He expelled him and He cursed him. And that's why, as is mentioned in the Quran, Iblis, he says, in his arrogance, he says, قَالَ رَبِّ فَأَنذِرْنِي, O my Lord, give me some respite, give me a length of time. Because he knew he was doomed and destroyed because of his arrogance, which was kufr, which was disbelief. So he said, قَالَ رَبِّ فَأَنذِرْنِي إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ, O Allah, grant me some respite, meaning leave me for a period up until they are resurrected. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said to him, قَالَ فَإِنَّكَ مِنَ الْمُنذِرِينَ, He said, you are from those who have been given respite for a time. إِلَى يَوْمِ الْوَقْتِ الْمَعْلُومِ, to the time, to the appointed day, which is known. And then he said, now this is his arrogance, he said, قَالَ رَبِّ بِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي, he said, oh my Lord, because you misguided me, because you led me astray. And then he said, لَأُزَيِّنَنَّ لَهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ, he said that I will beautify things for them upon the earth, and I will misguide all of them. I will misguide all of them. So this is Iblis, this is Shaitan, and this is his promise, that he has promised to misguide the whole of mankind in the time that Allah has given him some respite and some time, up until Yawmul Qiyamah. This is the reality of Iblis. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said in the Quran, Inna shaytana lakum adu. Indeed, the shaitan is to you an enemy. فَاتَّخِذُوهُ عَدُوًّا. Take him as an enemy. إِنَّمَا يَدْعُو حِزْبَهُ لِيَكُونُوا مِنْ أَصْحَابِ السَّعِيرِ. That he only calls his people, his party, that they may be from the people of the fire. So this is Iblis, this is shaitan. Now once we understand this, and we also understand that after Iblis was rejected and cast out, he then went and he put Adam alayhi salam to trial. And we mentioned that this story has been mentioned many times in the Quran. So he went to Adam alayhi salam, he began to whisper to Adam alayhi salam to make him disobey his Lord. And he made him and his wife to eat from the tree. And when he whispered to him and misguided him, he said certain words. He said, as is mentioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-A'raf, مَا نَهَاكُمَا رَبُّكُمَا عن هذه الشجرة إلا أن تكونا ملكين أو تكونا من الخالدين. He said that your Lord, He only prevented you from this tree, just in case that you become angels, or in case you live forever. Now these are whisperings that He's putting into their minds, that your Lord doesn't want you to live forever. Your Lord doesn't want you to become like angels. And in another verse, Iblis, he said, Ya Adam, hal adulluka ala shajaratin al-khuldi wa mulkin la yabla. O Adam, shall I not show you to a tree, which is a tree of eternity, eternal life, or a dominion that will never come to an end. So from this we see that Iblis, he's come to Adam alayhi salam, putting these whispers and these claims, become like an angel, live forever, and so on and so forth, have everlasting dominion. And in that moment of weakness, our father Adam alayhi salam, he disobeyed his Lord. And so as a consequence of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, وَقُلْنَا احْبِطُوا بَعْضُكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ عَدُوٌّ. After Adam sought forgiveness and Allah forgave him, and because of his disobedience, as is mentioned, that they were sent down, Allah said, descend all of you from here. قُلْنَا احْبِطُوا جَمِيعًا بَعْضُكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ عَدُوٌّ. Some of you are enemies to the other. And this is the key thing here, that some of you are enemies to the other. So from this we understand the enmity between the father of the jinn and the father of the men. Because as we see from Imam al-Zuhri rahimahullah ta'ala, and likewise also from Al-Hasan al-Basri, they are from the imams, from the leading scholars of the tabi'een, from the Salaf. They said that Adam alayhi salam is Abul Ins. He is the father of men. And Iblis is Abul Jinn. He is the father of the jinn. Now that we understand that there is enmity between the jinn and the men from this angle, and that the goal of shaitan is to misguide mankind and to lead them into the fire, because that is where shaitan knows he will shaitan knows that is his destination. He will end up in the fire. So in the time that Allah has given him this respite, his aim is to misguide as many people as possible. And this is now which brings us to the issue of magic. If we understand magic in light of this background, it will help us to appreciate what is really happening when magic takes place, and what is hidden and what's really taking place, as we shall discuss shortly, inshallah ta'ala. So coming to magic, as-sihr, what is the meaning of magic? What is its definition? The meaning of magic is, it's an expression, it's a word that represents anything which is hidden. The means and ways is hidden. And that's why the night, there's a part of the night which is called sahar. Sahar, it comes from the same word, as-sihr and sahar. the darkest, latest part of the night, where it is very quiet and very, very dark, it is called sahar. And this is because things are hidden, the things that we normally would see from the animals or the things that sting and bite and harm, all of these are hidden. And so the word sihr comes from a similar meaning. The general idea is that there are things that take place whose causes we can't see. The means we can't see why these things are happening. So for example, in magic, you see someone becomes ill, he loses his mind, he's unable to do certain things. What's the reason? We don't know. He goes to a doctor. The doctor can't explain what the reason is. He goes to, all sorts of different people. They can't figure out what's wrong with this individual. But he's got a real problem. So what's the reason? We can't see it. We don't know it. It's hidden. This is the meaning of magic. Things whose ways and means, to us at least, are hidden and concealed. So this is the meaning and definition of magic, and this magic that we see and observe and witness is of two types. The first type is a magic that is what we call haqiqi. It is real, true, physical and perceivable. We can experience it. This is what, for example, when a person, someone could die from magic, someone can become very ill from magic, someone he loses his mind as a result of magic. These are physical things that we can see. This is the first type, magic which is haqiqi. The second type is what we call takhyili. It's something that a person imagines that he's seeing something, or he's smelling something, or he's experiencing a sensation, some heat or some cold or something like this, but it actually is not really there. Right? So he thinks he saw a dog, but it's not a dog. He thinks he saw someone walk into the room. There wasn't someone who walked into the room. He thinks he's smelling something. There's actually nothing there. Nobody else can smell it. This is now what we call magic, which is takhyili. The imagination is being played with, made to feel and perceive, and with the senses, things which are not actually there. Nobody else is feeling them. So this is the second form and the second type of magic. Now, magic, the ruling upon magic is it is haram, and it constitutes major disbelief. It is kufr. And the reason for that will be explained and become clear, inshallah ta'ala, in a short while, when we understand how magic actually takes place, how magic is actually effected. But as for the ruling, the evidence for the ruling on magic, then the scholars explain that in the verse in Surah Al-Baqarah, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions Sulaiman alayhi salam, where He speaks about Sulaiman, and He clears Sulaiman from the accusation that he was a magician. Right? In that same verse, inshallah, which we shall look at in a short while, the scholars say that in this one verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has indicated the ruling upon magic in three places. In one verse, Allah has indicated that magic is kufr on three different occasions in the same verse. The first one is at the beginning of this ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَمَا كَفَرَ سُلَيْمَانَ وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا. He begins by saying that Sulaiman did not disbelieve, but the devils disbelieved. Here is one proof in this verse that magic, practicing magic, is kufr, is disbelief. Then, when he mentioned about the two angels, Harut and Marut, when they were sent to put the people to trial, they would always say first, إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةً فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. They would say, indeed, we are a trial, so do not disbelieve. Here is a second proof in this verse that the magician is a disbeliever. And then the third proof in the verse towards the end is when Allah says, وَلَقَدْ عَلِمُوا, that they indeed knew, لَمَنِ اشْتَرَاهُ, whoever purchased something of magic, مَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ خَلَاقٍ, that he has no share in the hereafter. There will be no share for him in the hereafter. These are three evidences in one verse which indicates that the practice of magic is disbelief. And then also from the hadith, from the statements of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, in the hadith when he said, the hadith about the 7 destroying things, he said, اجتنبوا السبع الموبقات, beware of the 7 destroyers, the 7 things that destroy. And then the companion said, what are they, O Messenger of Allah? And he replied, Ash-shirku billah, associating partners with Allah. And then he said, right next to that, as-sihr, which is magic. And the scholars explain, and then after this he mentions the others, killing a soul, which is unlawful to be killed, and taking usury, and the other things that were mentioned. But the scholars mentioned what was the significance between putting shirk first and magic right next to it. And that is because they say that shirk is a wasila of magic. Shirk is a means by which magic is actually implemented. And that's why the two were put right next to each other. So once we understand the meaning and the definition of magic, and likewise the ruling upon magic, then we should know that magic has been present from at least the time of Nuh alayhi salam. Common misconception is that magic came around in the time of Sulaiman alayhi salam, or this is incorrect. Magic has been present at least from the time of Nuh alayhi salam. What is the proof for that in the Quran? The proof for that is the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, كَذَلِكَ مَا أَتَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ مِنْ رَسُولٍ إِلَّا قَالُوا سَاحِرٌ أَوْ مَجْنُونَ. That no messenger came to those before them except they said, he is a sorcerer, he is a magician, or he is a madman. So every messenger, and we know that Nuh alayhi salam was the first messenger, every messenger was met with at least 2 accusations. Either he is a magician or he is a madman. This is a proof that magic has been present at least from the time of Nuh alayhi salam. Even to Prophet Salih, he was before Prophet Ibrahim. They said to him, قَالُوا إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مِنَ الْمُسَحِّرِينَ. Indeed, you are from those who are the sorcerers, مِنَ الْمُسَحَّرِينَ, which means indeed you are those upon whom which magic has been done. And likewise they said also to Shu'aib, and likewise they said to Musa alayhi salam, إِنَّ هَذَا لَسَاهِرٌ عَلِيمٌ. Indeed, this is a learned magician. So magic is not something from the time of Sulaiman, rather it is something that came before that. Now, this brings us to Sulaiman alayhi salam, and as you know, there is an accusation that Sulaiman alayhi salam used to be a magician. From the Jews and the Christians, they believe and they assert that Sulaiman was a magician. And in the Quran, in that verse that we mentioned earlier on, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has declared Sulaiman alayhi salam free of this charge. So he says in this ayah, in fact, if we look at the context of this verse is speaking about the Jews who were present in the time of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And when the Prophet came, they knew that he was the messenger that is mentioned in their books. That's why Allah says, وَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ مُصَدِّقًا لِمَا مَعَهُمْ نَبَذَ فَرِيقٌ مِّنَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ وَرَاءَ ظُهُورِهِمْ كَأَنَّهُمْ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. So he says that when a messenger came who confirmed that which came before him of revelation, then a group of these people from the people of the book, they threw the book of Allah behind their backs, as if they did not know. As if they did not know. So these people who were present in the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, speaking here about the Yahud, he continues to mention about them that these people rejected Muhammad, and then they followed ﷺ, then they followed what the devils were bringing in the time of Sulaiman. So, in the time of Sulaiman, what the shayateen would do, they would write magic. They would write books of magic. And then they would put them under the throne of Sulaiman. And they would teach the people these things. And then when Sulaiman, when he passed away and he died, and they looked and they found under his throne all of these books. And they saw in these books things to do with astrology and the stars and things of magic and things of that nature. Then from here, the people divided into 2. A faction of the Jews, they began to believe that Sulaiman was a magician and that it is permissible to engage in magic. And then there were some others who basically they believed that this, what Sulaiman, they rejected this. And then they spoke ill about Sulaiman alayhi salam. And so this is something that was brought about by the shayateen, by the devils in that particular time. So in this ayah we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is declaring the innocence of Sulaiman. Sulaiman was not a magician, but rather this came from the shayateen. And then in the same verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He speaks about the angels, Harut and Marut. They were sent to a place called Babil, which is known as Babylon, in English, Babylon. And Babylon is an interesting place because historically this place goes back to Nimrod, who is the king who argued with Ibrahim alayhi salam. And these people used to be involved in astrology and star worship, and they were well into philosophy and mathematics and things like this. And so a lot of this magic developed in that place called Babylon. Now the Yahud, the Jews, they'd already been affected by the magic of the devils in the time of Suleiman. But then they were taken captive by the king Nebuchadnezzar, and they were taken to Babylon, roughly about 600 years before the time of Isa alayhi salam. And they were kept captive. And whilst they were captive in Babylon, they learned a lot of this magic and astrology and this numerology from those people. And also in that time they wrote their book called the Talmud. You've probably heard of the Babylonian Talmud. This is different to the Torah. The Torah is the book that was sent to Musa alayhi salam. But then these rabbis, these people, they began to write their Talmud, which is basically just their own opinions, and they mixed it with the things that they learned from the nations that they were living under, like when they were held captive, and they brought a lot of this astrology, magic, talismans, spells, things of that nature, and they put it into their Talmud. That is why in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions about them that they believe in al-jibt wa taghut. Al-jibt wa taghut. And the scholars explain, what is the meaning of al-jibt? What is the meaning of al-taghut? They say al-jibt is al-shaytan. Al-taghut is a-sihr. And some of them say the other way around, that one is sihr, one is shaytan. And this is how they explain. And this is what it's referring to the Yahud who picked up this magic. Now this magic has so you can see how the Yahud, they turned away from the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They moved away from worshipping Allah alone, and by way of the shayateen, the jinn, the devils, they got misguided into falling into affairs of shirk through the route of magic. And then so that's why you see that amongst the Yahud now, you see that their religion consists of talismans and magic and superstition and astrology and numerology and so on and so on and so forth. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because amongst the Muslims, what you see amongst the Muslims, you will see an amazing coincidence that everything is the same as what they do, and what you find in the books of the Jews, in the books of the Yahud, in the books of the Kabbalah. Because this word Kabbalah, the Qaf, Ba, Lam, it's the same in Arabic. Qaf, Ba, Lam, it has the same. It means to receive knowledge. And so the Jewish magic, which is known as the Kabbalah, it is actually a form of magic. It's knowledge. It's knowledge by which we become better, but it's really, they call it spiritual knowledge, but it's really magic. It's magic, right? And so this is what the Yahud were upon. And this is how magic came to them. The shayateen in the time of Suleiman, and likewise the angels Harut and Marut is mentioned in the ayah, and likewise the time they spent in Babylon, and also the time they spent with the pharaohs in Egypt. They picked up a lot of things from that as well. And all of that they brought together, and they abandoned the deed of Musa alayhi salam, and they entered into shirk. So this is the ayah in a nutshell, the ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah, which mentions in detail. In fact, there's lots of materials here. We don't have the time to go through everything. But an understanding of that verse is important because it gives us some historical context about magic and what we see the Muslims, falling into today. So now this leads us to another statement here from Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, And he makes mention of a verse in the Quran which is very important for us to understand. First of all, he says, as for magic and fortune telling, it is a type of assistance that is given by the devils to Bani Adam. The devils come and they assist humans in these issues of implementing magic and fortune telling. And they say the fortune teller, he's informed by the jinn. And as for the magician, then the one who's actually killing people or making people ill and have all those effects, it is the shaitan. Likewise, when people fly through the air or they appear to levitate and all these effects that we see, some of them which are just tricks, some of them which actually may be real because they're using the devils, then all of these is from the shayateen, from the devils. Now here is the verse that Ibn Taymiyyah mentions. He says, وَيَوْمَ يَحْشُرُهُمْ جَمِيعًا. On the day that Allah will raise all of them together. So jinn will be raised and the men will be raised. And he will say, Ya ma'shar al-jinn, O gathering of the jinn. So he will address the jinn, O gathering of the jinn. قَدْ اسْتَكْثَرْتُمْ مِنَ الْإِنسِ. You misled the humans. You misled them, you misguided them. And then he says, وَقَالَ أَوْلِيَاؤُهُمْ مِنَ الْإِنسِ. And then those, their friends from the men, so those friends who were working with the jinn, they will say, O our Lord, رَبَّنَا اسْتَمْتَعَ بَعْضُنَا بِبَعْضٍ. Some of us, we took benefit from each other. We used each other. And the meaning of this is that they, benefited and used each other for their own benefit. Then he said, then it continues to the end, وَبَلَغْنَا أَجَلَنَا الَّذِي أَجَّلْتَ لَنَا. We have now come to the final appointed time that you appointed for us. And then Allah will say, the fire is your abode, abide therein forever, except as Allah wills. Now, there are two things here. One is that Allah mentions that the jinn misled those people from the men. And then those people from the men, they will say that we took benefit from each other. And so the Mufassirin, the scholars like Imam al-Baghawi, rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, what is this benefit that's being referred to here in this ayah? The benefit is magic. It is as-sihr. So the shayateen, the devils, they bring about magic out of service to the men, and then the men give something back to the jinn. And the men, they ask for magic to be performed from the jinn, and when the jinn do that, they then offer some service back to the jinn. This is the benefit that either party takes from the other one. So now that we understand that magic is a collaboration between the men and the jinn, then the question arises, what must a man do in order for the jinn to implement his magic? Right? So in other words, how does a man become a magician? And the answer to that has already proceeded in the verse in Surah Al-Baqarah. Allah says, وَلَقَدْ عَلِمُوا لَمَنِ اشْتَرَاهُ مَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ خَلَاقٍ. That indeed they knew that whoever purchases something of magic, he will have no share in the hereafter. So what is it that a man has to do such that he will not have any share in the hereafter? Then the answer to that is that he has to commit kufr, and he has to commit shirk, he has to disbelieve, he has to sell his religion, he has to sell his soul to please the devils so that they will bring about the effects and the influences that he wants. Now, here are some of the things, and these things are not being made up, they are real and true, and I will give you some evidences, some pictorial evidences, inshallah ta'ala. So, here are some of the things that a person must do in order to win the assistance of the devils. Number one, he has to disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This can take place in many different ways. The devils might say to him, revile Allah, speak ill about Allah. They might say, abandon the prayer, leave the prayer. They might say, pray in the toilet area. Right? In other words, a person is made to do things which are humiliating the symbols of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you will see these people, they will pray in the toilet area as a means of doing something despicable and vile and filthy. And Likewise, sometimes they will put a copy of the Quran, a mushaf, and they will put it under their feet, or they will tie it to their feet and walk on it. These are not being made up. These are real and true things that these devils, that these shayateen do. Likewise, to enter the toilet area with the Quran. Likewise, they might be told to write the Quran with something that is najas, which is impure. For example, it might be na'udhu billah, it could be urine, it could be menstrual blood, it could be other filthy things. Now, just to make sure that these are not being made up, here is a picture of a page of the Quran. This is the page of the Quran. This is a female magician, and you can see in this picture here that she has rolled up the mushaf. She's rolled up a page of the Quran so that this word specifically is showing. Okay, and then on this you can see some signs here, that is menstrual blood, and here you can see it more clearly that this is something that is being used to hold that, and then it is being placed in a certain part of the body in order so that the menstrual blood can come upon the mushaf. Na'udhu billahi min dhalik. And so these are things which are actually found with magicians. These are things that they must do in order to win the assistance of the jinn. Has everybody seen that? Yeah. I'll pass it over if the women want to have a look. Likewise, they are asked to do certain other vile and filthy things in terms of relationships. I won't mention them. Sometimes you see that they will be asked to remain alone in the dark for 40 days. They're not allowed to wash. They have to remain in a filthy state. Or they are asked to be in the state of janaba after relations, and then never come out of janaba. Never wash. Never take ghusl. Remain in the state of janaba. Why? These are all filthy things and vile things that the devils, they want from the son of Adam to misguide and to mislead him, so that they can then start serving him and then make him think that he's the one who is the master, whereas in reality it is the jinns who are the masters, and it is the men who have been misguided and misled, exactly as we read in the verse that we mentioned earlier on. So these are some of the affairs that a person must do in order to become a magician. And once a person has won the assistance of the devils, it is now from this point onwards that he can start implementing his magic and start using it as a, why do people do magic? They earn money. Why? They consume the people's wealth in falsehood. You want to marry this person? I'll do it for you. You want to separate these two people? You have jealousies and hatreds? I'll separate these two people. You've got a grudge against that person? Come to me, I'll make sure that I'll make his life miserable. Right? This is what these magicians do. And the magicians appear, as the scholars say, that whenever you have tawheed and iman is spread and strong in a society, the magicians disappear. The magicians disappear and they go underground. And whenever you see tawheed and iman and taqwa becoming very little and diminished, this is when the magicians and the fortune tellers and the soothsayers, this is when you see them appearing in the society. And in fact, sometimes within a society you might see that it's actually become the norm that magicians and soothsayers and fortune tellers, people go to them. And it's considered to be normal to go to them to get guidance about their life, to get spiritual guidance as they claim. And this shows how misguided a society has become when they turn to, soothsayers and fortune tellers. And that's why we see in these societies, where they are societies of the non-Muslims, you see fortune tellers in the papers, you see magicians advertising themselves openly, whatever type of magic, the trickery, deception, or whether it's the other type of magic. All of this, you see, it is open and widespread in a society and taken as something normal, taken as something spiritual. This is a sign of great misguidance. A society is far, far away when this is the state in a society. Now, what is it? What are the different types of things that these magicians do once they have won the assistance of the devils? Separation. Separate between a man and his wife. Separate between a man and his father. We'll look at these in more detail later on. Here it's just very brief. Secondly, they might try to unite certain people, bring two people together in marriage. They might prevent marriage. They might cause problems for the newlywed. Someone who is newlywed and there's someone who's got some jealousy towards them, they'll get some magic performed, and now they find that the newlywed couple can't really get on together. They can't have relations, or they can't get on together, or they start hating each other. Likewise, a person, he loses his intellect, he loses his mind. He's absent-minded, he can't think straight. A person becomes illness in different parts of the body, or he might be prevented from certain specific actions. All of these are some of the effects that is brought about by way of magic. Now, how is this magic? How is it implemented? How is it brought about? Well, the magic itself, so now we're looking at the process that a magician goes through in order to bring about the effect of magic. First of all, the magic itself consists of two parts. There are two parts of magic. The first part is what we call the base, the foundation. This is called the base. And the second part is called the agent, or the khadim, the servant. What do we mean by the base? The base is something which is delivered. It could be an item of food. It could be an item of drink. It could be some incense or some smoke. It could be knots which are tied on a rope. It could be some artifact which is used, for example, a piece of hair, or a picture, a photograph of someone, or a piece of clothing, a clothing which has been in contact with the body, because they need the sweat of the person in order to get the jinn to identify and do the magic. Or it could be things that people write, talismans that we shall look at here, examples of talismans that you see here. This is what we call the base. This is now the base. So the magician, he prepares the base, right? So this is, as we said, food, drink, he will put something in it, tying knots, talismans, spells, and then what he will do with these is that they will be placed in a certain place, either fed to the victim, or they'll be placed, hung off a tree, or they'll be laid in the foundation of a house, or whatever ways the magician sees fit. Now, why is the magician doing this? The magician is doing this because this is a means of approaching the devils. This is a means of approaching the shayateen in order to make an offering to them, so that they in turn will fulfill the thing that he wants to be done. So, let me give you some examples here. In fact, let's finish off this discussion, then we'll send these sheets out, inshallah ta'ala. So, actually, tell you what, let's pass these sheets out. So here are some examples. I'll just go through them one by one, then I'll send them to you. So first of all, you can see here the different ways in which the magic can be done. Here are some eggs. These are eggs in which someone has written certain numbers and certain symbols. You can see here a heart with an arrow going into the heart. Right? There's symbols involved, and all of this is to do with the type of magic which is intended. Here you can see, one second. Here you can see a lock. This is a lock, and around it is a sheet which has got like certain stars and symbols and Arabic writing which is funny, you can't understand what it means. Here you can see a symbol with a pyramid which has numbers in it, and all of this, as I pass it around, if you were to pick up a book of the Kabbalah, the Jewish Kabbalah, and look at the talismans and the magic, it's absolutely identical. Right? You will see the same triangles. You will see the same squares, the same magic square numbers. It's exactly the same. That's where it's come from. Right? So these are things done by Muslims. So here's one example. I'll pass that through. If you can pass it through and then send it back, so I want to send it to the other side. Here's another clear example. In this example, you can see in the center, this is a square, and each square adds up to the number 15, no matter which way you do it. 15 that way, 15 this way, 15 that way, 15 that way. Again, this is straight from the Kabbalah, from the books of the Jews. Because what they have is that because this originally comes from the star worshippers, right? They used to have certain symbols that represent certain planets. So for example, this number here, 15, and this box here represents, for example, it could be the planet Neptune, Pluto, whatever. And then another symbol, a four-side square, and the number could represent, for example, Jupiter or something, right? And then they believe that there are spirits which are in these planets, and they are invoking these spirits, and they believe these spirits will bring the effect. So you can see the clear connection to shirk in all of this, right? So here, now the key thing is, the important thing for you to understand now here, is that around these symbols, there are names of the Prophet, ﷺ, and there are names of Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and Ali, and there are names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And likewise, there are certain names they actually don't make sense. These are names of the Jinn. These are names of the Jinn. Why are they mixing all of this together? It is to confuse the common person. It is to confuse the Muslim. The Muslim thinks, oh yes, this is something Islamic. I can see a verse in the Quran. I can see the name of Ali. I can see the name of, the Al-Bayt, the offspring of the Prophet ﷺ. I can see the names of the companions. I can see the names of Allah. This is something, Islamic is something good. This is how they deceive the people. Really, the thing that is actually creating the magic is the astrology and the symbols and the shirk and the names of the jinns. That's what's actually producing the magic. And the rest is just decoration to misguide the people. Here's another clear example. You will see also a common feature is these 5 pointed stars, which are common, which are tied to the magic, and So I'll pass these through. You take a look at that as well. Send that through. Here are some more examples of where we have a slipper, on a shoe. We have something written on that sandal. Here we have a lock with a key. This type of magic is used when they try to bring two people together, hence the concept of the lock. And then they'll sellotape some written spells, somewhere on the lock. This is an example of a small necklace. This thing opens, the heart thing opens, and within there will be some spell or something written. Yeah, I'll take a look at that as well. And here is the symbol. You can see the 5-pointed star. This is a symbol. It's well known in magic. It is connected to the worship of the devil, of shaitan. They have different names for this, Baal and Bel, and all sorts of things. And that's why in the spells that you see, a common feature is the 5-pointed star in the spells. Okay, so this is what we mean by the base. The base is something prepared by the magician. Within it could be a spell, and you see the very deceptive ways in which that is done. Then what will happen, this person will go and he will plant it in a certain place, and then he will invoke the jinn. He will call out to the jinn whose assistance he has already won. The jinn whose assistance he has already won. And then he will call out and he will say, he will make an invocation. He will say, oh so and so, entrust from me this talisman and implement it. Right? He will convey it and he will ask for the jinn to implement it. So now we're going to move from the world of men to the world of the jinn. Right? So this is what's taking place on the side of the world of men. Now when we move to the world of the jinn, amongst the jinn, just like amongst the men, you see there are kings, there are leaders, there are rich people, there are powerful people, then there are the low people. We find this amongst the men. Likewise amongst the jinn, it is exactly the same. It is exactly the same. There are very strong, powerful jinn at the top, the ifrit. Then there are levels, there are kings amongst them, there are leaders amongst them. Then as you go further down, there are smaller, average jinns. So what happens is that this magician who's won the assistance of the higher jinns, these higher jinns are the ones who are intent on misguiding mankind. When they receive the talisman and they see that this individual has now done some act of shirk and kufr, go and sacrifice a chicken to so-and-so, go and do such and such, get some blood, they'll be told to do certain actions which comprise shirk. Right? So you'll see they'll be doing all these funny actions. Once the magician has done that, and that's why the magician you'll see him always to be like someone filthy and living in the dark and having all sorts of these weird, funny things. We'll look at the signs later on. And so he comes, he does that, and then the jinn, once he's seen this person has committed this action, he will then delegate a weaker, smaller jinn and say, right, you must go now and go inside this person. So another jinn now is delegated to go and to implement the actual magic. So now this person, this jinn, he goes to the target, he goes to the individual, and whatever is the desired goal, he has to implement that goal. So for example, separate this man and woman. So this jinn will come, and jinn, as you know, they have the ability to enter people, play with their senses, the physical senses, they can play with their mind, play with their imagination. The jinn, they can actually do this. We don't understand, we don't know the reality of the jinn, but this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way He has created them, they can bring about these effects and influences. So for example, he makes the husband to start seeing his wife in a way that his wife is not even like this. Or he starts smelling things that are not even there. Or he starts having these feelings of dislike and hatred because his emotions are being played with. So all of this now begins to take place in a person. He might feeling a pain in his stomach, in his leg, in his arm. And it's actually a jinn who's gone inside his body and is playing, with the organ or with his nerves or with his senses. And this is how it is. This is how the magic is now brought about. Now we'll come to the different types and the different ways and means in a bit more detail. So the first of them is sihr of at-tafriq. Sihr of at-tafriq. The sihr of separating between two people. This could be between a man, his wife, his mother, his brother, his neighbor. It could even be between two people who are business partners, separate them. Right? It could be between a man and his wife, which is the most harmful of all of them. This is the first type, sihr at-tafriq. And some of the signs of this is that you see a person suddenly changing in his character. All of a sudden lots of differences start appearing between a husband and wife. Hatred just appears out of nowhere between husband and wife. These are some of the signs. We also have sihr of bringing people together. This is called at-tiwala. At-tiwala. The sihr of at-tiwala. This is when people try to bring two people together, a man and a wife to marry. And this again is a type of magic that is common, because as you know, many of these things, why does magic take place? Magic takes place because amongst mankind there are desires. There are desires, lusts. There are lusts, likewise the desire for wealth, and likewise the desire for position, and likewise desire for status. Right? So status, position, physical lust, desires, people want to fulfill them. The Sharia has come with lawful ways, halal ways, in which to fulfill those desires and how to attain those desires. There are some people who want to transgress because in their hearts there is a sickness. So there are some people in whom there is a sickness of lust. In some people it is a sickness of wealth. They want wealth. They want position. They want authority. And they're not concerned halal or haram. I want to get it. Right? This is found amongst the people when they are far away from Tawheed and the Sunnah. Then amongst mankind are those who see an opportunity that the people, they have jealousy for so-and-so. The people want so-and-so person, his wealth to be destroyed. This person wants to marry that person. They see all of this amongst mankind. Right? Then they come out and these are the magicians. They sell their soul for a small price. And they make money from the people. So you want to separate that person? Come to me, I'll separate that person from that one. You want this person to be ill and experience hardship? I'll do that for you. And that's why you see these people, when you go into these communities, you'll find leaflets are put through the doors that, anything you want in life, want to become rich, want to become well known, got a jealous person that you want to harm. These leaflets come through the doors of the people. These are people who know and recognize that we can make money from these, common people who don't know any better. So here we see that one of the types of magic is at-tiwala, to bring two people together. Also from the type of magic is sihr at-takhyil, as we mentioned before. Person starts imagining something that is not there in front of him. Physically, he starts perceiving things, smelling things, seeing things which is not there. Sihr, fourthly, the sihr of al-junoon. Al-junoon. This is when a person, he loses his mind. Right? He's forgetfulness. He becomes absent-minded. He can't speak properly. His eyes he's always withdrawn. These are some of the signs and symptoms of this type of magic. Each type has a particular set of symptoms that you can identify which type of magic it is. So here this person, he's, just becomes absent-minded. He doesn't think about himself, his appearance, his clothing. He's disheveled. He's not really there in conversations, withdrawn. This is the sihr of junoon. Sihr of junoon. Likewise, and what's happening here is that the jinn are coming in and they're obviously affecting him in a way to bring about this effect. Likewise, the sihr of al-hawatif. Al-hawatif, this means a person starts hearing things. A voice comes and he hears things. No one else heard it, but he's just heard something. And that's why you see many of these people who are involved in murders, violent murders. They go and kill the whole family or something, or they go and kill everybody in the school or something, or whatever. You'll see that these people, they have sihr of al-hawatif. And they'll tell you afterwards when they're in the court, I heard a voice. This voice was telling me to do this. Or I saw a black dog and the black dog was telling me, I was talking to the black dog and he was saying, do this, do this, do this. That's what you'll see, people admitting that this is what they were experiencing. This is sihr al-hawatif. The shayateen come to them and say, go on, go ahead, kill yourself. Go ahead, and they beautify this thing. Go ahead, kill your family. This is from the effects of the shayateen. Likewise, the sihr of al-marad. This is the disease, the illness. So this is quite common. Illness in the stomach. There'll be illness in the arm. There'll be some physical pain, and you go to the doctor, and the doctor can't explain anything. There's nothing wrong. I can't, tell you what's wrong with you, but there's definitely something wrong. That's the seventh type of magic. Likewise, sihr of an-nazif. This is unique to women, and this is when they experience a constant flow of blood, and the blood never stops. This is unique to women. This is also a type of magic. And the ninth type of magic is when they try to separate a man and a woman in marriage. And so you find that some of the signs and symptoms of this is that they don't have any feelings for each other. One of them becomes extremely angry or extremely fearful, or they become totally absent-minded. These are some of the ways in which an individual is affected to break his marriage. So now you can see that all of these ailments and problems that we see within societies, what are their causes? A lot of them is magic. A lot of it is actually magic. And as we said, magic affects those people whose hearts are empty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Iman and Tawheed is weak in a society, the magicians are running the show. And when Tawheed and Iman becomes established in a society, the magicians flee. And that's how you can tell a state and condition of a people. And that's why also, since we are speaking about this topic as well, because our next topic in the next lecture is related as well. When you see, you can tell that societies need Tawheed. They need Iman. They need education. And then you see these jama'at, these groups, these parties, they come along, these political jama'at, and they are oblivious to the realities of the people. And what they do is instead of teaching them the affairs that these people are most in need of, they take them to other affairs and get them involved in revolutions and political work and toppling the rulers and assassinations, coups, parties, demonstrations. All of these things which don't actually fundamentally change societies. They destroy societies because these are not the ways and means of rectification. So we're going to come to that in the second talk. But as a point here, the point that I'm making is that when we look at societies, we look at what's taking place in a society. How can we correct this society? How can we guide this society? How can we remove the ills and the problems which are afflicting this society? And you see in societies, everybody is affected with magic. Everybody has some problem. Very common, very widespread. Now, so what are the reasons which explain this? What are the reasons for the appearance of magic? Well, first of all, it is weakness of iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Weakness in iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Secondly, enjoining good and prohibiting evil is no longer found. We don't see that the Muslims, they enjoin the good and prohibit the evil. So for example, there might be in a community, there's a leaflet drop. In the house comes this leaflet. Want to marry someone? Come to me. Want to harm someone? Come to me. These leaflets that people send out, and everybody's indifferent. Nobody cares. Pick it up and throw it in the bin. What should be happening is that people should enjoin the good and prohibit the evil. They should expose this individual. Inform the people this man is a swindler, a fraudster. He's making you commit that which is haram. He's going to take your money and do something which is haram. This man is involved in that which is kufr, disbelief in Allah. This voice should be open and out in the communities, but it's not. When it's not, these people are able to thrive. They publicize their business in the newspapers. They put leaflets in the homes of the houses, taking this disbelief to the people. So the second reason is that enjoining the good and prohibiting the evil is absent. People don't perform this anymore. They are indifferent. Third reason is unique actually to Muslim countries, where the ruling upon a magician is no longer implemented. In Islam, there is a specific ruling for the magician, and it is for the ruler to implement that ruling. And so in some Muslim countries, you see that this is actually, it is implemented, like in Saudi Arabia, that ruling is implemented. Now obviously, I'm not speaking about any other country. This is only for the rulers to actually do that. But the absence of that no longer puts fear in the hearts of the magicians, and they'll continue committing their corruption. Also, you'll see that from the reasons is the spread of the means of communication, the internet, and the magicians have websites, and they come on the satellite TVs, and they're out there, and they're able to broadcast to millions and millions of people. To broadcast to millions and millions of people, you know, what they do. So all of these are some of the ways and means that are behind the spread of magic. Now, this brings us to the practical issues. How does a person now deal with magic, and how does he treat magic? Well, first of all, we should say that there are two ways to treat magic. One which is haram, and one which is legislated in the Sharia. As for the one which is haram, it is to treat magic with magic. There is no such thing as black and white magic. This is a fallacy. There is only one thing. It is magic, and it is haram. Because magic is such that it always involves the use of the shayateen, the use of the devils. So anyone who claims to be a white magician and only doing good, then this is not accepted from him. Indeed, this was actually said in the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He was asked about something called an-nushra. An-nushra was something that used to refer amongst the Arabs in that time as curing magic with magic. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Hiya min amali shaitan." It is from the deed, it is from the action of shaitan. So there is no such thing as a good magician or a white magician. And in fact, most of these people that the people go to, they will make this claim: I only cure magic in the right way. And when you look at the things that they write for the people, like those things which I've passed around, you will see that they deceive the people. A verse of the Quran, Ayatul Kursi, then some numerology, then the names in Arabic of certain jinn that you won't know what they are, then the names of the Prophet, all deception to misguide and deceive the common person who thinks this is something legitimate and something good and acceptable. So, after at the end, yeah. So there is no such thing as good magic. There is only magic that involves the shayateen and the devils. As for the legitimate correct way, it is by way of the ruqya shar'iyya, and we should look at that in a bit more detail. But at this point, we want to make clear that there is a lawful way and there is a haram way. The haram way is going back to the same thing that you started out with, right? And the way to look at this, let me explain to you how it's working. These magicians see the people as money. This is how it is. They've sold their souls for a miserable price. And so when a person comes and a magic has been done to him by one magician, right, and that magician's obviously received money from someone else, this person will go to another person and say, "I've had magic, can you cure me?" Now this person, this is like a goose. Now this person is going to make money from this individual as well. And what he's going to do is put another form of magic on this person. So this one will now do another magic. He will involve another jinn. That jinn will come to this person and kick out the original jinn. The original jinn that was affecting the magic, this one is now removed. Right? And now another jinn comes. So his initial problem has gone. The pain in the arm has now gone. The problem with the wife has now gone. Give it a few weeks, a month, another problem will occur. Now he has another problem. Okay? Then he'll go to the magician again and again and again. And each time what's happening is that he's being treated with magic. Right? So he becomes someone who's just being played with and used and abused by the magicians, and each time they're just taking money out of this individual. This is how it's really worked. This is how it's working. And so this is why the scholars, they call them, these are fraudsters and swindlers, and this is what they do. So from this then we want to move into how does a person deal with magic, and there are a number of situations. First of all is, how do you deal with magic before it actually takes place? Right? So magic, it can be before it takes place or once it has taken place. How does a person protect himself? Well, let's go to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The first practical measure that you can take is al-ajwa. These are dates which a person can eat. Al-ajwa. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said in a hadith, he mentioned in a hadith regarding the ajwa dates, that whoever takes 7 of these dates, whoever woke in the morning and took 7 dates of ajwa, he will not be harmed for that day, neither by poison nor by magic. Neither by poison nor by magic. This is the first practical step that a person can take. The second thing is al-adhkar, which is remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah says in the Quran, فَاذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ وَاشْكُرُوا لِي وَلَا تَكْفُرُونَ. Remember me, and I will remember you, and be grateful to me, and do not be ungrateful, do not disbelieve. So remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from the benefits of remembrance, as is mentioned by Ibn al-Qayyim, is that remembrance expels shaitan. It repels shaitan, and it destroys his plot. Number 2, it pleases Ar-Rahman. It brings the pleasure of Allah. Number 3, it removes anxiety and stress from the heart and mind of a person. This is the dhikr. And number 4, it brings about happiness and serenity in the heart of an individual. These are from the effects of dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And dhikr can be done in many times of the day. After the prayers, when you are sitting, when you are standing, anytime you bring Allah to mind, this is a strong fortress. This is a strong fortress against shaitan. As the scholars explain, like Ibn al-Qayyim, that the heart, when it is empty, it's an open invitation to shaitan. And the heart, when it is full of the remembrance of Allah, it is like a fortress. Like a fortress, the shaitan cannot enter into the heart. So these are some of the ways, and likewise there are many adhkar, many supplications in the Sunnah. We see from the practice of the Prophet, reading Ayatul Kursi after the prayer before you go to sleep. Likewise reading the 3 quls, blowing on the hands and wiping over the body, entering the house, leaving the house, entering the bathroom, the washroom, leaving the washroom. All of these are found in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and this is from the remembrance by which a person, he protects him from the effects of magic. Now the next thing is, what if magic has already taken place? What if you are afflicted with magic? We've already explained that there is a haram way, an unlawful way to to cure magic. But the halal way is by using the following means. First of all is the use of honey, al-asal. We find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran the honey and how it contains fihi shifa'un linnas, that within it is a cure for the people. Likewise, the Messenger of Allah, he said, alaykum bishifa'ain al-asal wal-Quran. Upon you is the 2 cures, honey and the Quran. And likewise he said in another hadith, ash-shifa fi thalath, Cure is in three things. Shurbatu asal, a drink, a sip of honey. And likewise he spoke about blood cupping, al-hijama. And likewise he mentioned cauterization, even though he prohibited his ummah from cauterization. And so here, the first thing that a person can use is the use of honey, and the best honey is the honey of sidr honey. And that's the first issue. The second issue is the use of black seed, al-habbatu sawda. The Prophet he said, "Alaykum bihadhihi al-habba as-sawda, fa inna fiha shifa'un min kulli da'in illa sam." Upon you is this black seed, for indeed it has a cure from everything except for death. Reported by Bukhari and Muslim. Likewise, it is mentioned in the Quran the virtue of olive oil, the oil of the olive. Allah says about this tree, shajaratun mubarakatun zaytunah, a blessed olive tree. And then he swears by the watini was zaytun, by the fig and the olive tree. And he also, Imam Sa'di rahimahullah ta'ala, he said that this tree that is being referred to in the Quran is a tree that used to grow in the land of Sham. And some of them say in the land of Palestine. And so in that general area, and some others say that it is in Al-Maghrib and those kind of areas. So basically that Mediterranean region where we have the olive trees, this is what is being referred to. So there's also another hadith, eat from the olive, kulu az-zayt, eat from the olive, and use its oil. For indeed it is a shajara mubaraka. It is a blessed tree. Hadith is authentic, declared authentic by Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah ta'ala. So from all of this we understand that olive oil can be used also. The water of Zamzam is the fourth thing. These are all practical measures a person can use. The water of Zamzam. The water of Zamzam, it is said, as is mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ, خَيْرُ مَاءٍ عَلَى وَجْهِ الْأَرْضِ مَاءُ زَمْزَمْ. The best water on the face of the earth is as Zamzam. فِيهِ طَعَامُ طَعَمْ. Within it is a sweet, nice, tasty food. وَشِفَاءٌ مِنَ السَّقَمِ. And a healing from a disease. Authentic hadith. So here we see a healing in the properties of the water of Zamzam as well. Likewise, the trees of there's actually a lengthy cure which I'll come to at the end inshallah ta'ala, but there are some other ways and means. Also as-sina. As-sina is a type of leaf, and the Prophet ﷺ, he said that if there was anything in which there was the cure for death, it would have been as-sina. If there was something that was a cure for death, it would have been as-sina. And sina is a type of leaf that is dried and then crushed and then boiled in water and then eaten. Also from the cures of magic is al-hijama, which is being cupped. And so the Prophet he said, whoever is cupped on the 17th or the 19th or the 21st of a month, it is a cure from every disease. So that is also part and parcel of removing the effects of magic from an individual. Likewise, there is ad-du'a, supplication, and this is from the greatest of the practical steps by which a person can remove the effects of magic. It is making du'a to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with isti'ana and isti'adha and istighatha, calling upon Allah for aid and assistance and rescue and help. All of this is part from the tawheed in a servant that will help to remove the effects of magic. Now there are certain things, important things that a person also must be aware of, that if he falls into certain actions, he is making himself open to the effects of magic. From those things is eating that which is haram. Eating the haram things. When a person eats that which is haram, aklul haram. Drinking that which is haram. And likewise wearing that which is haram. And feeding oneself, having nutrition from that which is haram. All of these things, like we see in the hadith of the man, in the An-Nawawi's 40 hadith, where he comes and he calls upon Allah, his dua is not accepted. Why? Because his food is haram, his clothing is haram, his eating is haram. And how can Allah answer him? And these are things, when a person is engaged in things which are haram, it makes him prone to falling into, to being affected by magic. Also from experience, when you speak to many of those people who are affected by magic, you'll see many of those people are affected because they are engrossed in music. They are engrossed in music and listening to music. They are engrossed in pastimes that empty the heart from remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We know this from experience. Many people that we know who were affected by magic, and they say it was because of this. We were into this type of music or that type of music or that type of music, and they became affected by a Sikh jinn, because this person was involved in a certain type of music, and this person got affected by such and such a jinn because he was involved in such and such type of music. These are stories that you hear from people and from experience. So this brings us really to the close of our discussion on magic, and there are some other issues as well on ar-ruqya, and likewise on the evil eye and things of that nature, which inshallah ta'ala we can probably discuss on another occasion. We've come to the end of the first session, and if you have for any brief questions on the topic, we'll try to deal with them now inshallah ta'ala. The first question here is, if one has encountered sihr in the past from a known person, should that person be cut off? If a person knows for certainty that a person is a magician and is involved in performing magic and doing magic on people, and this is known with evidence and with certainty, then obviously if you're living in a country where these things can be dealt with formally, then you would contact the authorities, and there's a process and procedure by that would take place. But obviously in most countries where we live in the non-Muslim societies, then obviously you have to beware of that person, cut off relations with that person, and inform the people in the community to beware of that person. And if there is someone known, person with knowledge and understanding, who can go and enjoin the good, prohibit the evil, establish the proof against that person, then these are some of the affairs which should be done if you have the ways and means and the ability. As for sin affecting a person's chances, or sihr, as for sihr affecting one's chances of getting married, then yes, of course, this is the intent behind sihr. Magic is done for many different reasons, and from those reasons is to either prevent a person to get married. One person wants to get married to a person, he doesn't want somebody else to get married, so therefore he will do magic to make sure that nobody else comes on the scene. These are the ways, these are why these things take place. So yes, it can affect a person's chances. However, as we said, a believer, the way he should look at sihr is it is a type of oppression. Sihr is just oppression. Just like, for example, amongst mankind, if someone took your wealth, if someone physically beat you and physically harmed you, if someone defamed you and spoke ill about you and attacked your honor, all of these are forms and types of oppression. Sihr, magic, and being affected by magic is simply another type and form of oppression. That's how we should look at it. And the way we should look at it as a victim of magic is that just like if a person was to harm me physically, take my wealth unlawfully, attack my honor unlawfully, and I would feel hurt by that, physically or mentally, I would have to acknowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He decreed that for me. This was from the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'm going to bear this with patience. I'm going to bear this with patience. And patience is the greatest tool by which he can stand against the oppression of that person. Right? This is how he would deal with it in the normal oppression that comes to him from the people. Likewise, it is exactly the same thing with magic and the jinn. When magic is affecting a person, when the jinn are affecting a person, this is another type of oppression, except that this time it is from the jinn, not from the men. And it could be that a person who's behind the magic. In any case, the way that a person should deal with this is treat it as a form of oppression and he should anticipate his reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he should use all the ways and means in order to repel the effects of as-sihr. And it should not prevent him from seeking to be married, or prevent her from seeking to be married. Rather, a person should use all the ways and the means at his or her disposal. Now, let me also, since we're dealing with practical issues here in most of the questions, one of the ways that a person who is affected by magic should try to understand the task which is in front of him or her in dealing with magic is that you should see this as a battle between two armies. It's exactly the same idea. There's a battle between two armies. There's a war between two armies. And the army which is going to win is the army which has at its disposal the most weapons, and which has the best strategy, and which has the greatest determination. Right? There are three things: the best tools, and the best strategy, and the most determination. Right? This is, when you are affected by magic, this is what it's actually war between two parties. It is you as an army, and the shaitan, and as an army. And anyone who is neglectful and slack, we know from practical experience in actual wars and battles that the one who is slack, the one who is lethargic, the one who doesn't have determination, he is not going to win the war. That war might take years, might take months. If you are lethargic and slack and take it easy, how are you going to win the war? We know this through experience, from practical experience. We know from wars that wars are won with determination of iron, of steel, with tools, with strategy. Then exactly the same way, the one who is affected by magic, he has to treat it exactly the same way. He's involved in a war. Either he's going to win or the shaitan is going to win. This is how it is. And often in wars, maybe you might lose a battle here and there, but the war continues. If you lose a small battle, la bas, continue. You'll win another battle. And this is how a person should see when he's trying to deal with the effects of magic. He has to treat it like a war. So at his disposal is dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are things of iman, dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reading the Quran, making tawbah to Allah from his sins, freeing himself from that which is haram. These are things that relate to his relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are practical steps, things which damage the effect of magic. Things like the sidr, honey, things like zamzam, things like the ajwa dates, things like doing the cupping on the 19th, 17th, the middle, certain days of the month. All of these are practical things which actually affect and harm the jinn that is inside the body. So you use all of these ways and means. These are the tools, these are the weapons by which you destroy the effect of magic. Then you have to continue and persist with nerves of steel and keep going and keep going and keep going. If you take this way, inshallah ta'ala, Allah will bring you a cure. Now, in contrast, think about a person who all he does is he goes to a magician, or he goes to this person or that person. There's nothing, if it's ruqya, there's nothing wrong with that if it's correct Sharia ruqya. But you have to understand that the more a person depends on other people, the weaker his cure is going to be. And the more he depends upon Allah and takes things in his own hands, the more the jinn knows in him that this is going to be a tough battle. Right? This is how the jinn look at things as well. That the more you run to other people, can you do ruqya upon me? Can you do this? Can you do this? The more the jinn knows that you're reliant upon other people. Your tawakkul is weak. You are a weak person. And the more you develop your iman and use the tools and the ways and means and have the determination, then the more the jinn will know that you are someone who is going to give him a hard time. And the easier you're going to remove the magic. So the answer really here that if, can sihr affect a person's chance of getting married? Yes, it can. But then you don't sit back and think, well, I'm not going to get married. You have to take all the ways and means. It's just a form of oppression. Your reward is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you take all the ways and means in order to, strive to get married, if that's something that you must do. Is someone's Islam accepted if they do not have their sanity? A person who does not have sanity, he is mad, the pen is lifted from that person. So that person is not actually held accountable. Right? So all mad people, everyone who's insane, right? No matter what he is born as, if he's insane, then he, whether a Muslim or not Muslim, whether he accepts Islam or not Islam, if we know him to be insane, he can't use his faculties, then the pen is lifted from that person. Right? So he's not held accountable. And then on Yawmul Qiyamah, there are certain categories of people who are raised. They will then given a trial and a test on Yawmul Qiyamah. But in the life of this world, then, if he is insane, the pen is lifted from him. So the issue of Islam or not Islam is not relevant in the life of this world, but in the hereafter there will be a trial. Obviously, if a person became Muslim and then he lost his sanity, then the pen is lifted from that point onwards, and so his Islam will be accepted. Yeah.
You mentioned the Iyaad in the Quran mentions that there are two angels. What's the deep of is it a tafsir or is it ayah in the Quran that mentioned that the first thing taught was how to spit up a man's word?
So again, it's in the ayah of the Quran. The ayah mentions that they would learn from the angels that by which they would separate between a man and a wife. That's mentioned in the ayah explicitly, yeah. And that's the type of magic that they learned from the angels Harut and Marut in Babel. Yeah. Yeah.
How do we nullify sihr? Like, for example, a person comes with a ta'weez or...
Yeah. How do you
How do we nullify it?
Okay. The way that you invalidate magic. Well, first of all, actually, because there's a lot of material here, we don't have the time to go through all of it. But one of the points is that Sheikh Ibn Baz mentioned that the way to cure the magic, first of all, is that if you can find the base, the thing that was used, right, you should strive to find it using normal means, right? So look in the house and look in different areas and remember if you took any food or things. So you try to find as much as you're able to see if you can trace the actual origin of the magic. If you're able to find it, so let's say we find like a spell or something like this, then there's a certain way that you do it, which is known from experience is the most safe way to do it. The most safe way to do it is if we have a piece of writing, a paper with writing, you put it in water so that the ink dissolves completely from the paper itself. And once it's dissolved, then you can burn whatever is left, the paper, whatever else. And the reason they say this is because one of the ways that magic is implemented is by burning. Right? So for example, if a magician writes the spell, and the spell is such that when it is burned, the spell will take effect. So as a precaution, you try not to burn a spell as a means of destroying it, because that could be actually affecting the magic. So as a precaution, what people who are trained in this, they put it in water, so the writing comes totally off the water, so it's been invalidated from that point of view. Then if you want to burn the dried piece of paper, you can, but that's generally the way that's actually done. And then thereafter, as you said, you can burn the artifact or whatever was used. If you can't find the thing, then it is not permissible to use the jinn. There's many people, they go back to the jinn, go back to the magicians and say, can you help us find such and such? And then we go back into that spiral, that circle, where you're now going back into the spiral of the magicians again, in their snares again. So to go and ask them, it is not lawful to go and ask them, can you tell me where the magic is and where can I find it and so on and so forth. This is unlawful. Rather, you use the ways and means that we mentioned in order to repel the magic once it has taken place.
Is there anything that you recite while you put in water?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, the person who's you can make dhikr of Allah, you can recite Ayatul Kursi. These are things that he's doing whilst he's destroying the artifact. It's not a condition or anything like that to mention that, but it's something good to do that at the time when you're destroying the magic. The proof that you should go and find the thing is that the Prophet ﷺ, he sent a person to go and find the comb that was used to perform the magic upon him, and it was in a well. And so the scholars use it as a proof that if you are able to go and find the artifact, then you should do so. And that's the best way, easiest way to destroy the magic. If not, then obviously you use the ways and means to get rid of the sihr. Yeah.
One of the things that is quite prevalent in the Muslim community is the use of taweez.
Yeah.
Can you just explain to us, I mean it's quite prevalent in Islam
Yeah.
as well,
Yeah.
whether there's anything in the Sharia that permits such a thing?
Yeah.
And secondly, what does it actually mean for the person to write such a thing and the somebody that wears it? Because quite often you see them wearing it around their necks or their
Yeah.
chest or their arms.
Yeah.
If you can just shed some light on
Yeah. Okay, well, this is an issue related to ruqya, which is seeking protection by way of reading. When we look at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is our best example, the Quran was revealed, as we've heard in the verses, as a healing for mankind. And that healing is a healing of the heart, and likewise it is a healing of the body. Now, before the Arabs, and even as the Quran was being revealed, the companions would recite certain things. They used to have certain ruqyas that were done in the days of Jahiliyyah. And they would ask the Prophet ﷺ whether they should read these things. So he would ask them to read them to me, and I will tell you if it's okay. And so this is how what used to take place in the early part of Islam. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He revealed the last two chapters of the Quran, the Mu'awwadhatan, the Surah Al-Falaq and Surah An-Nas. And once they were revealed, then the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims in general, they would seek refuge by way of these two surahs. And there was a certain way that they would do it as well. And that way we see, as we mentioned, the Prophet ﷺ, he would open out his hands, lightly blow into them, spittle into them, then read Surah Al-Ikhlas, Qul Huwallahu Ahad, Qul A'udhu bi Rabbil Falaq, Qul A'udhu bi Rabbin Nas, to the end, and then wipe his head first, then whatever part of his body he could reach. He would do that 3 times, and then he would go to sleep. And so this is a means of protection. Likewise, we see the Ayatul Kursi would be recited before a person goes to sleep, and an angel is appointed upon that person. He will not be harmed. So when these verses were revealed in the Quran, the Prophet ﷺ and his companions would act upon them, and their power, the power in these verses lies in the understanding of what they contain. What do these verses contain? Look at Ayatul Kursi. From beginning to end, it contains the Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When a person, the effect of Ayatul Kursi is when you recite it whilst bringing to mind the meaning of Ayatul Kursi. Your heart, what appears in your heart of the meanings, and in your mind of the meanings, and you recite this with conviction, this is what gives the effect. Likewise, when you look at Surah Al-Ikhlas, it is the Tawheed of Allah, Allah's names and attributes. Surah Al-Falaq, you're seeking refuge in Allah from various types of evils. Surah An-Nas, you're seeking refuge from Allah from the whispering. Right? All of these surahs, they contain the Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you saw, this was how the Prophet, peace be upon him, and likewise the companions, may Allah be pleased with them, this is how they used to implement the cure that came in the Quran. It is not established or known at all from the Prophet ﷺ that he would wear something, or that the companions would wear something. And I will give you a really good analogy. This is a really good analogy. The analogy would be, and you can use this to educate the people. Imagine you go to a doctor, and the doctor has, you have a headache, for example, or you have a rash on your body, you have eczema, you have a rash, or you have some sort of pain. And so this doctor, you go to him, and the doctor, he gives you a bottle, and the bottle is wrapped up in a piece of paper, and he gives you a necklace, and he says, wear this around your neck for 3 days and 3 nights, or just keep it on, and this will cure your rash, or your illness, or your disease. Does this make sense to you, ya ikhwan? Does this make sense to you? No, because the ways and means, this is not the way that you take the medicine. The medicine is that there is something in your body that's creating a pain, right? So when you take that pill that is given to you, there's some chemical within that pill which has a certain effect. It plays with the biochemistry of the body, it prevents a certain reaction, then your pain goes, right? These are from the ways and means which are studied from the sciences of the world, because there are ways and means in this world. And so the doctor has given you the pill because you're going to take the pill, and the pill is going to have its effect. right? This is now, if this doctor said to you, put it around your neck on a necklace and leave it on, and this will cure you. You know that this is not a doctor. This is a charlatan. This is a charlatan. And likewise, the patient, if the patient took the medicine and just hung it around his neck, and he thinks that this is how he's going to be cured, now the patient is a fool and an idiot, right? This we know from the worldly sense. Ya ikhwan, the cure that was revealed in the Quran and the surahs in the Quran, they are there to be used in a certain way. How are they to be used? Just like the doctor gives you a pill. The pill, you put it in your mouth. Or he gives you the cream, you put the cream on your arm, on your skin. This is how it is administered. Then likewise, the cure in the Quran, how did the Prophet ﷺ, how did he teach us how to use the Quran? This is what we find in the Sunnah. He would recite qul, the 3 quls, blow into his hand, wipe them over his body. He would make the dua when entering the house, when leaving the house, when entering the washroom, when leaving the washroom, when eating the food. All of these are from the ways and means by which we receive protection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala against the effects of magic, and in fact every other type of evil. So when we say ta'weez, this means simply a means of seeking protection. This is how a Muslim, a believer, he protects his heart by seeking protection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As for what we find the people writing and doing certain things, then first of all, as we said, it is not a practice of any of the Sahaba or the Prophet ﷺ. It is the opinion of a very small minority group of scholars that to write something, it was something that used to be done, but all of these the narrations and the reports, all of this clashes with what we find from the Prophet and the Sahaba in general, and the best guidance is the guidance of the Prophet and the guidance that the companions were upon. So why do we turn away from that to something else? We stick to the guidance which is best. Now the other point as well is that, as you can see from the things which are sent to you, from the examples that are sent to you, if you were to open one of these ta'weezas and you were to open and see what's inside a ta'weez, and you see what's in there, you will find that really it is magic. It is not the Quran which is intended. Even though you will find verses of the Quran, you will find verses of mention of the names of the Prophet and other things, this is just to deceive the people. You will see the squares with the numbers and triangles with the numbers. All of this is the astrology, the numerology, the names of the Jinn. This is what is really creating the effect. So when a person you go to and he says, yes, I'm going to cure you by way of the Quran, by way of this, he'll give you something of the Quran, but then you'll see other things. There'll be the names of the Jinn in Arabic. There'll be other weird numbers and things. And he'll put all of this together and put it in a ta'weez, in a black thing, and wrap a cord around it and say, "Well, this is the Quran," and you will be cured.
I mean, we've got imams doing that.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the point I'm making here, is that even if a person, in fact, I have a section here, if I can find it, it's important to go through it, is how do you recognize a magician? How do you know that a magician, how this person is a magician? There are certain signs you can know from those signs. Is, for example, when you go to his place, it's a dark room, it smells, it's filthy. When you go to his place, he will ask you for your mother's name, or the name or the mother's name of the person you want to be affected by magic. So if he says, "What's your mother's name?" or this is a clear sign this individual is a magician. Or he will say, "Can you give me a piece of clothing that the person has been wearing or that you've been wearing, and I'll cure you." Asking for any item of clothing, a clear sign straight away. This person is a magician. Likewise, if he asks you to do certain things like sacrifice an animal, or funny things that go and spread some blood in a certain place, and all these kind of funny things, this person is a magician. The signs of a magician are very apparent and very clear. A person who is a person of the Sunnah, a person upon Tawheed, a person of the Sunnah, he will tell you the same things that were mentioned in this lecture. He will say to you, read the Quran, learn Tawheed, repent from your sins, know that this is oppression, have patience. And then he will give you all the practical steps. Eat some ajwa, make use of sidr, make use of Zamzam, make tawbah, try to go to Umrah if you can, make use of hijama, right? This is what a person of the Sunnah will tell you. Person of the Sunnah will tell you the same as what you see a doctor does. You have this disease, take this pill, take that pill, take this, change this diet, do this. He will give you all the practical things that are known. And likewise, when it comes to magic, recite the Quran, make dhikr, read the quls, read Ayatul Kursi, make tawbah for your sins, make dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, eat ajwa, take honey, use zamzam. All of these are the person of the Sunnah will tell you. This is all that you will hear from a person of the Sunnah. As for a magician, then these are the things you'll hear from him. Give me your shirt. Get me a picture of the person that you want to be affected. Give me a hair. Read such and such 10,000 times. He'll give you all these funny things that you never heard of before. These are from the signs of a magician. And even if this person has a beard, he's wearing a beard, and he's wearing a thobe, and he's asking you these things, do not be deceived in any form or fashion. In fact, let me tell you a story. Let's finish with a story. Let me finish with a story which is mentioned by some of the scholars to tell you how deceptive these people are. There was a man many, many centuries back, and what he did is that he traveled to maybe 100 or so different towns and cities. Right? So he went to different lands, and he went to all these different lands and cities, and every time he went to a city or a town, he went to a specific place that he measured in terms of from this tree, I now move 5 steps in this direction, then 5 steps left, and then he got that specific spot. Yeah? And then he digs that spot, and then he puts something in that place. Right? He buries something in that place. Then he makes a register of every single place that he's been to. Right? Been to Damascus, on the outskirts, in this small village, where there's this tree, 5 steps ahead from the tree, 3 steps to the left at that point. So he's now made a register, he's got a book. And in this register, he's got literally hundreds of different locations that he's been to and where he's planted something. Right? Then, once he's taken maybe taken him 6 months, a year, 2 years, he's done all this. Right? Now he starts being the healer, the curer, the magician, the one who removes magic. So as the people start coming to him, they come to his house and they say, we have this thing, whatever. He goes, where are you from? And they will say, we are from such and such village, such and such place. So he goes, you wait right here, I'll be back in a few minutes. So he goes back, he goes to his register, he goes and finds that place, right? And then he remembers where's that location of that thing that he planted. So then he'll come out in a few minutes, he goes, right, if you go to such and such place and you'll notice a tree, and from that tree, stand east. As you stand east, walk 5 steps ahead, and then turn west and walk 3 steps, and right there you'll see like a plant. Dig under that plant right underneath. Someone has done magic upon you. And you'll find the spell right in that place. And to heal you and cure you, then I will, bring me, 100 dirhams or something, and I will cure you from this disease. Right? So This is organized. Talk about organized fraud. This is organized like an organized swindle from centuries back. This is how these people work. This is how they operate. So the fact that this person is wearing a beard and is wearing a thobe and wearing a scarf and everything, this should not deceive you whatsoever. If you see any of the telltale signs that this person has the signs of dealing with jinn, then you keep away from this person. If they claim to tell you where the magic is, he's told you where the magic is, this person is dealing with a jinn. If this person is asking for your shirt, he's dealing with a jinn. All of these things, you know that this person is dealing with a jinn. Do not be deceived by anything else, the Quran, which he recites and whatever else. Why? Because look at it from the point of view of this person as well, this individual. This individual is in a process of being deceived by the devils himself. There are many magicians who think, I'm a good person, I'm not going to commit shirk. I'm just going to use the jinn to get information. Right? This is what a lot of these people actually think. But the jinn are very smart, very clever. They draw individuals in, slowly but surely. Right? So they think, I've only got good jinn. The good jinn tell me only good things. Right? And so slowly but surely over time, this individual will be misguided. So that person himself, which appears to you, oh yes, I only use the good jinn, I don't do bad things. He himself is being put to trial. He doesn't know it. Right? And you're going to such a person. So that's what we said. As soon as you see the signs of any of these, involvement with the jinn, flee like you would flee from a lion. If a person is saying to you, I know where the magic is, he's dealing with the jinn. So, yeah.
With the evil eye, is there any effects or any part of the shayateen that take involvement when people are affected by the evil eye? And how do the effects manifest?
Right. The evil eye is something different to magic. The evil eye, we believe in the evil eye. It's actually a subtopic of this topic, and we actually have, we don't have time to go through all that. But the evil eye, just like magic, we believe it to be true and real. Magic isn't true and real. We understand what magic is. It is interaction between men and jinn, and the jinn, through hidden means and hidden mechanisms, they bring about certain effects. So that's we understand that. As for the evil eye, then the evil eye is an effect which is true and is real. And even though we don't understand it, we don't really truly understand how it is, some of the scholars like Ibn al-Qayyim, he actually makes like an indication. He says in one of his books that it is possible that the evil eye, that something from the individual actually comes out through the eyes, something that's not visible, we can't see it or perceive it, and it goes and it affects the actual individual. So he says it's possible that there is something like this even though we don't understand or know what it is. So the evil eye is when the person has some filth, has some jealousy, has some feelings in his soul, and then he looks at something, either out of amazement, he becomes amazed with something, or he is jealous and envious of something, and he looks at it with a certain, with a certain eye, then an effect actually takes place. Right? Now we don't understand the mechanism of all of that, but we have been told that the effect of the evil eye is true and it is real. So we believe in that. And, again, the same issue comes, how do we protect ourselves from the evil eye? We use preventative measures. We make the dhikr of Allah. We use the Suratul Falaq, which mentions the protection from the hasid, the one who is envious. Right? So we use the same means and methods for protection from the effects of the evil eye. But as for how it takes place, we don't know the realities of that. We believe in the realities. Just like we believe in the jinn, where they exist, we don't know how jinn are. We believe in the angels, we don't know how the angels are. Likewise, we believe in the effect of the evil eye, even though we don't understand how it takes place.
Yeah. How does reviling the deen benefit the jinn?
Reviling the deen benefits the jinn because their aim is to misguide mankind. Iblis wants as many people to be in the fire with him as possible. Because Iblis knows he's entering the fire. And that's why he said, لَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ, I'm going to misguide all of them. I'm going to misguide all of them. That's his aim, that's his goal. And so the jinn know that entry into fire and remaining in the fire is if you die upon shirk or kufr. Right? So the aim of the jinn and the shayateen is to make a person commit shirk and die upon that. So, what are the ways and means a person leaves Islam? It is to revile the religion, revile Allah, revile the messenger, worship, sacrifice to other than Allah. The magician will say, okay, go and take a chicken, go to a certain place, sacrifice it in the name of so-and-so. He will sacrifice the chicken in the name of so-and-so. It will be dedicated to other than Allah. That's an instance of shirk. Right? So this is what he wants the people to go and do, to fall into actions of shirk. Because that is the way these people will enter the fire along with Iblis. So they don't physically benefit in anything, in what they make the men do, not physically, but their aim is to misguide and make those people enter the fire along with them. That's what their goal and their objective is. Yeah. And that's why the scholars treat magic to be automatic kufr. There's no it's automatic. The ruling upon a magician is he is a kafir, right? Automatically, right? Because the presumption, because that mechanism only works because the magician has already committed kufr and shirk. The only way that the jinn are doing for you what they are doing is because you've committed disbelief. Right? It's not possible any other way. Yeah? That's why magic is automatic disbelief. Yeah. We have one quick question.
Is that the same illusionary?
Sorry?
Automatic
Okay. Illusionary magic, there's some tafsil, there's some detail, because there's an issue of illusion, such as, for example, a person like putting something in his hand and, concealing something and things of that nature. This is like what we call, when we say illusionary magic, we need to separate between two things. We mentioned earlier sihr, which is takhyili. Right? Takhyili means the magic is affecting the senses of a person. Right? So you're seeing something that's not actually there. This is a jinn affecting the senses of a person. Right? That's one category. Another category is when I have a coin here in my hand and I do this and, whatever. It's just a sleight of hand. Right? I'm tricking your eyes, but not in the same way as the jinn is tricking the eyes of a person who sees, for example, a dog that's not even there. Or he's smelling a smell that's not even there. This is now a person actually, this is a jinn playing with the physical senses. The senses are physically being affected. This is sihr takhyili. This involves the jinn. Yeah. The other one, where you're playing tricks like visually, and you're using like technical tricks, in which a lot of the magic is, then the scholars have a detailed issue. They say that this is not disbelief unless it involves the jinn. Yeah? Unless it involves the jinn, it is disbelief. But even then, it is not something, it is unlawful anyway, because tricking and deceiving is not something that is permissible. And if you want detailed information on this, Ibn Taymiyyah discusses this in detail, because in that time of Ibn Taymiyyah, these people, they would put like a certain oil, rub it on their body, and then they would walk through fire, right? And they make it look as if they were, whatever else. And so they would use like technical skills to deceive, and other times they would be using devils. So they would stab themselves and sit in the fire. This time they're using devils. So Ibn Taymiyyah, he knew the difference between these two things, and that's why he categorized it in a number of different ways, and he spoke about it. If you want more information on this, go to the website dajjal.com, DAJJAL.com. There are lots of articles that explain the difference between each of these three types. Yeah? Yeah, so that illusionary magic, we have to be clear what we are speaking of. Yeah.
There was a certain individual in Mashhad in Birmingham who was doing magic, as you know. What's the ruling on that? Because obviously they're going to stay.
The magic that is sleight of hand, the magic that is.
And obviously causes a lot of problems.
Yeah, it's not permissible to. Not permissible. This type of deception is not from our way, and this type of entertainment, it's not because it involves deception. A Muslim stays away from everything which involves deception. There's no. The character of the Muslim is opposed to deception in any form. So it's not good to do that. Okay, inshallah, we'll end this first session here. It's now 4:10. If we can have a break for maybe, we'll start at 4:30 for the next session, inshallah. We've got 1 year now for that. So if you want to take a break for 20 minutes, and then we'll continue, inshallah, for the second talk. Wa jazakumullahu khairan. MashaAllah, كيف حالك؟ خير هناك؟ Yeah. No, that's if it's able. If you're able to do that and find it, as Sheikh Ibn Baz said, alhamdulillah, go ahead, do it. Yeah? Right? It's not the case that you just, ignore that altogether. If you can find it, find it. But it's got to be found using only lawful means. Right? So you can't go to a soothsayer or a magician or whatever. Yeah. But,
So you found it under
yeah, then alhamdulillah, destroy it. Yeah. If you find it, yeah. Yeah. If you can't find it, right, using normal means, then just use the means that we discussed. Yeah. It's not lawful for you to go and start, many people do that though. Many people, they think there's nothing wrong with, what we're doing wrong. We're just finding where the magic is. Many people do that. Yeah. But again, that same person can only be doing that if